On a stormy night, amidst the relentless downpour and flickering streetlights, Logan Carter, a wealthy and influential businessman, found himself facing a decision that would forever change his life. As his car cruised through the rain-soaked streets, Logan's thoughts were consumed by the weight of his son Ethan's fragile health and the hollow silence that had settled over his once vibrant home. Despite his success and wealth, Logan carried a profound emptiness, one that no amount of power or prestige could fill. Then it happened. A sudden stop. Through the foggy windshield, Logan saw a figure. A young woman, drenched and trembling, shielding a small child from the pouring rain. Her eyes held a blend of fear and determination, a raw sincerity that pierced through the coldness of the night. Something about her reminded him of the love and sacrifice his late wife once embodied. And in that moment, Logan made a decision that would ripple through every corner of his carefully controlled world. Who was this mysterious young woman? Why was she out in the storm, protecting a child who wasn't her own? And how could one chance meeting begin to unravel secrets, heal broken hearts, and forge bonds stronger than any adversity? This story isn't just about wealth or power. It's about family, redemption, and the extraordinary connections we make in the most unexpected places. Follow this emotional journey, filled with twists, heartfelt moments, and the profound realization that even the most broken lives can find hope and healing. If you enjoy stories that touch the heart and challenge the soul, don't miss what comes next. Subscribe and join us as we explore the power of kindness, resilience, and the unexpected turns that life can take. Stay tuned for the story that will leave you thinking long after the last word. The rain hammered against the roof of the sleek black car as Logan Carter sat in the back seat, staring absently through the fogged-up windows. The storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within him. Ethan, his only son, was slipping further into a shell of fear and silence. Every specialist, every expensive treatment, had done little to ease the boy's suffering. Logan, a man who could command boardrooms with a single glance, felt powerless in the face of his son's pain. Suddenly, a sharp jolt brought Logan out of his thoughts. The car screeched to a halt, the suddenness jerking him forward slightly. "What's going on, Marcus?" Logan asked his driver, his tone sharp with irritation. "I'm sorry, sir," Marcus replied, peering through the rain-soaked windshield. "There's someone in the middle of the street. I think it's a woman and a child." Logan leaned forward, squinting through the haze. In the glare of the car's headlights, he saw her, a young woman standing amidst the downpour, her arms wrapped protectively around a crying child. She was soaked to the bone, her clothes clinging to her like a second skin, her hair plastered to her pale face. But it wasn't her disheveled appearance that struck Logan. It was the look in her eyes. Despite her evident struggle, there was a fierce determination in her gaze, a quiet strength that defied the storm. "Should I call the police?" Marcus asked hesitantly, glancing at Logan in the rearview mirror. Logan's hand was already on the door handle. "No," he said firmly. "Stay here." He stepped out into the rain before Marcus could protest, the cold water instantly soaking through his tailored suit. The roar of the storm swallowed his footsteps as he approached the woman. "What are you doing out here?" Logan demanded, his voice cutting through the rain. He stopped a few feet away, studying her. She didn't flinch but tightened her grip on the child, who buried his face in her shoulder. He was lost," the woman said, her voice trembling but steady. "I found him crying in an alley. I couldn't just leave him there." Logan's eyes moved to the child. The boy, no older than 5, clung to her as if she were his lifeline. His small body trembled, his sobs muffled against her chest. Despite the biting cold, the woman's arms stayed firmly around him, shielding him from the elements. "Why didn't you take him to the police?" Logan asked, his tone softening as he took in the scene. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting to the ground. "I tried," she said quietly, "but I don't know where to go. I don't have anywhere to go." Her words hung in the air, stark and unembellished. Logan felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in years, compassion. This woman, a stranger, was braving the storm for a child who wasn't hers. She had nothing, yet she was giving everything. "What's your name?" Logan asked after a pause. Amelia, she said, lifting her chin slightly. There was a flicker of defiance in her eyes, as if daring him to judge her. I don't want anything from you. I just want to make sure he's safe. For a moment, Logan was silent. Then, without fully understanding why, he said, Come with me. He gestured toward his car. Amelia's eyes widened in surprise, and she shook her head. I can't. You don't have a choice, Logan interrupted. His voice was firm but not unkind. You and the boy are freezing, and you have nowhere to go. I'll help you find somewhere safe. But first, you need to get out of this rain. Amelia hesitated, glancing down at the boy, who whimpered softly against her shoulder. Finally, she nodded, exhaustion evident in her every movement. Okay, she whispered. Logan motioned for Marcus to open the car door, and the driver quickly stepped out, holding an umbrella. Amelia climbed into the warm interior, her arms still wrapped around the child. Logan followed, settling into his seat opposite her. The car's heater hummed softly, and for the first time, the sound of the rain felt distant. As the car pulled away, Logan studied Amelia. She was young, no older than her mid-20s, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Her clothes were threadbare, and her hands were calloused, signs of a life far removed from the privilege he had always known. What's his name? Logan asked, nodding toward the boy. I don't know, Amelia admitted. He hasn't spoken much. He's scared. Logan nodded, his gaze shifting to the boy, who had finally stopped crying and was now dozing fitfully against Amelia's chest. There was something about the way she held him, as though protecting him was the most natural thing in the world, that stirred a long-dormant part of Logan. The car pulled into the grand driveway of Logan's mansion, its golden lights cutting through the gloom. Amelia's eyes widened as she looked out the window, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. This is your home? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan nodded. For now, it's yours too. Amelia looked at him, her expression unreadable. She clutched the boy tighter, as if bracing herself for whatever was to come. Logan couldn't explain it, but he felt a strange certainty in that moment. This chance encounter, this stormy night, was the beginning of something neither of them could foresee. And so, as the rain continued to fall, two strangers crossed the threshold of a mansion that would soon become the stage for a story of redemption, healing, and a bond that would defy all odds. The warmth of Logan Carter's mansion wrapped around Amelia Harper and the boy she carried as they stepped inside, dripping water onto the pristine marble floor. Amelia's wide eyes darted around the grand foyer, taking in the soaring ceilings, glittering chandeliers, and artwork that adorned the walls. It felt more like stepping into a museum than a home. This way, Logan said, his tone unreadable as he led them deeper into the house. Amelia hesitated, shifting her weight uncomfortably. She was acutely aware of how out of place she looked, her damp, tattered clothes and muddy shoes clashing with the mansion's immaculate elegance. She tightened her hold on the boy, who stirred slightly but remained asleep, his small body warm against hers. Follow me, Logan urged again, his gaze softening as he noticed her hesitation. As they walked through the expansive corridors, the silence of the house was interrupted by the echo of their footsteps. The contrast between the opulence of Logan's home and the bleakness of the life Amelia had known was jarring. The weight of it pressed down on her, amplifying the vulnerability she already felt. They stopped in front of a heavy oak door, which Logan pushed open to reveal a cozy sitting room with a crackling fire. The room was much smaller than the grand spaces they had passed, yet it was warm and inviting. A plush sofa faced the fireplace, and a tray with a teapot and cups sat neatly on a side table. Sit down, Logan said, gesturing to the sofa. You look like you're about to collapse. Amelia hesitated before lowering herself onto the edge of the sofa, still cradling the boy. She glanced at him, her face etched with worry. He's exhausted, she murmured, brushing damp strands of hair from his face. Logan crouched to her level, his sharp gaze studying her intently. And you? When was the last time you ate or slept? I'm fine, Amelia said quickly, but her trembling hands betrayed her. Logan stood and pressed a button on a nearby intercom. "Sophia, bring blankets and something warm to eat." Quickly, a brisk voice answered. "Right away, Mr. Carter." The silence stretched between them as Logan leaned against the mantel, his arms crossed. Amelia kept her eyes down, trying to make herself smaller. She was acutely aware of how Logan was studying her, as if trying to unravel her secrets. Finally, Logan broke the silence. "You said you found him in an alley. What were you doing there?" Amelia hesitated, her lips parting and then closing again. She didn't want to explain, didn't want to expose her life to this man who lived in a world so far removed from hers. But the weight of his gaze compelled her to speak. "I was looking for a place to sleep," she admitted softly. "I've been moving from shelter to shelter, but it's hard to find a spot. I heard him crying and—" her voice broke slightly as she looked down at the boy. "I couldn't leave him there." Logan's expression remained unreadable, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Admiration, perhaps, or understanding. Sophia, the housekeeper, entered with a pile of blankets and a tray of food. She stopped abruptly when she saw Amelia and the boy, her sharp gaze assessing them with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "This is Clara," Logan said, nodding toward Amelia. "She and the boy will be staying here tonight." Sophia's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, Mr. Carter." She set the tray down on the coffee table and handed Amelia a thick blanket. "Here," she said briskly. "You'll catch your death in those clothes." Amelia murmured a quiet thank you, wrapping the blanket around herself and the boy. The warmth was almost overwhelming, and she had to fight back tears as the knot of exhaustion and fear in her chest began to loosen. Logan nodded toward the tray. "Eat." Amelia hesitated but reached for a piece of bread, taking small, cautious bites. Logan watched her for a moment before speaking again. "Do you have a place to go?" he asked. Amelia shook her head, her grip tightening on the boy. "No." "Family? Friends?" "No one," she whispered. Logan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "And the boy? What's your plan for him?" Amelia looked down at the sleeping child, her expression softening. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just want to make sure he's safe." There was a long pause. Logan stared into the fire, his jaw tightening. Finally, he said, "Stay here, at least until we figure out what to do next." Amelia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise. "What? You need rest. The boy needs care." "You won't find that out there in the rain," Logan said firmly. "This is the safest place for both of you right now." Amelia opened her mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. She felt an overwhelming mix of gratitude and confusion. Why was this man, a stranger, helping her? Logan straightened, his commanding presence filling the room. "We'll talk more tomorrow," he said. "For now, get some sleep. Sophia will show you to her room." Amelia hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice trembling with sincerity. As Sophia led her out of the room, Logan remained by the fire, staring into the flames. He couldn't shake the feeling that this stormy night was the beginning of something he didn't yet understand, something that would test his boundaries, challenge his beliefs, and perhaps, just perhaps, fill the void he had carried for so long. Upstairs, as Amelia settled the boy into a small bed and pulled the blanket around him, she whispered, "You're safe now?" The words were meant for him, but she felt a strange comfort in them herself. Neither of them knew it yet, but this unexpected encounter was about to change everything. For Logan, Amelia, and the little boy who had brought them together, the storm was only the beginning. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of the small guest room where Amelia lay, barely awake. The boy was still asleep beside her, his tiny frame curled under the warmth of the blanket. She hadn't slept this peacefully in years, but the sense of safety was tinged with unease. The grandeur of Logan Carter's mansion felt like a world she didn't belong to, a gilded cage that could shut its doors at any moment. A soft knock at the door startled her. Before she could respond, it opened slightly, and Sophia, the housekeeper, stepped in. Her expression was stern but not unkind, her arms laden with fresh towels and neatly folded clothes. "Good morning," Sophia said briskly, her sharp eyes scanning the room. Mr. Carter asked me to bring these. He also mentioned breakfast is ready in the dining room. Amelia sat up quickly, her heart pounding. Thank you, she stammered, unsure how to respond to the formal kindness. Sophia hesitated for a moment, then softened her tone. Do you need anything else? For the boy, perhaps? Amelia shook her head, glancing down at the child who was stirring awake. No, this is more than enough. Thank you. Sophia gave a curt nod and turned to leave, but not before adding, Mr. Carter isn't a patient man. Best not keep him waiting. Amelia dressed quickly in the simple but clean clothes Sophia had brought, a soft sweater and a pair of comfortable slacks. They felt alien against her skin, a stark contrast to the worn-out garments she had grown used to. The boy, now awake, seemed more alert but still clung to her as they made their way downstairs. The dining room was a revelation. A long table, laden with an assortment of dishes, freshly baked bread, fruit, scrambled eggs, and steaming coffee, stretched out before them. Logan was seated at the head, reading a newspaper. He looked up as they entered, his piercing gaze immediately softening. Good morning, he said, setting the paper aside. His voice was calm, measured. Amelia felt a lump form in her throat. Good morning, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Come, sit. Logan gestured to the chairs nearest him. You must be hungry. Amelia hesitated, but finally led the boy to a seat. She served him first, cutting pieces of toast and offering him a cup of warm milk. Only after he began eating did she tentatively pick up a fork herself. Logan watched them silently for a moment before speaking. The boy seems calmer today. Amelia nodded, brushing a strand of hair from the child's forehead. He's had a rough time, but he's resilient. Do you know his name yet? Logan asked. She shook her head. He hasn't said much. I think he's still too scared. Logan leaned back in his chair, studying her. And you? Are you scared? The question caught Amelia off guard. She looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time. I don't know, she admitted. I'm grateful, but I don't understand why you're helping us. Logan's expression hardened slightly, though not unkindly. Let's just say I've learned that sometimes helping others can be the first step to helping yourself. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. But I can't help if I don't know the truth. Why were you really out there last night? Amelia hesitated, her grip tightening on her fork. She didn't want to share her past, didn't want to lay bare the struggles and mistakes that had brought her to this point. But something in Logan's gaze, a mix of curiosity and quiet insistence, made her feel that he wasn't judging her, only seeking to understand. I lost everything, she said finally, her voice trembling. My parents died when I was a teenager, and my brother and I ended up in the foster system. We were separated, and I never saw him again. Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. I spent years searching for him, but life wasn't kind. I worked odd jobs, moved from place to place, but it was never enough. When I lost my last job, I ended up on the streets. Logan's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected her story to hit so close to home. The rawness in her voice, the pain of losing family, resonated deeply with him. Your brother, he said after a pause. Do you still believe he's out there? Amelia nodded, her eyes filling with determination. I have to believe it. It's the only thing that's kept me going. For a long moment, Logan said nothing. Then he leaned forward, his tone firm but gentle. Stay here, not just for the boy, but for yourself. I can help you, Amelia. Her eyes widened. Why? Why would you do that? Because I know what it's like to feel helpless, Logan said quietly, his voice carrying an uncharacteristic vulnerability. And because I believe everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. Before Amelia could respond, the boy tugged on her sleeve. Thank you, he murmured shyly, his small voice breaking the tension. It was the first time he had spoken since they met. Logan smiled faintly. You're welcome, he said, addressing the boy directly. But we need to know your name, little man. The boy hesitated, glancing nervously between Amelia and Logan. Finally, he whispered, Leo. Amelia felt a wave of relief and hope wash over her. It's nice to meet you, Leo, she said softly, squeezing his hand. Logan stood, his commanding presence filling the room. Well, Leo, you and Amelia are safe here now. Let's take it one day at a time. As he left the dining room, Amelia watched him go, her heart heavy with questions, but lighter with the faint glimmer of hope. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in years, she felt that she wasn't alone. The morning marked the beginning of an unspoken understanding between Logan and Amelia. While Logan's motives remained partially veiled, his actions spoke of a man who had known loss and was searching for redemption. For Amelia, the safety of Logan's mansion was both a blessing and a challenge, a place to confront her past, protect Leo, and perhaps begin to rebuild her shattered life. Over the following days, Amelia began to settle into the mansion, though uneasily. She couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in a world far removed from her own struggles. Despite Logan's generosity, she remained guarded, unsure if his kindness came with strings attached. Leo, on the other hand, seemed to be slowly relaxing. The boy who once clung to her in silence now explored the mansion cautiously, his steps timid but curious. Logan, true to his word, ensured that both Amelia and Leo were well cared for. He assigned Sophia to help Amelia navigate life in the mansion, though the housekeeper maintained her professional detachment. Still, Amelia often caught Sophia watching her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, as if trying to decide whether she belonged in this place. One afternoon, as Amelia and Leo walked through the sunlit gardens, they encountered a boy sitting under a sprawling oak tree. He was thin, pale, and motionless, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Amelia immediately recognized him from the photograph on the mantel in Logan's office. This was Ethan, Logan's son. Leo tugged on Amelia's hand, his small face lighting up. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's Ethan," Amelia replied softly. "Mr. Carter's son." Ethan turned his head at the sound of his name, his dark eyes locking on Amelia and Leo. For a moment, there was silence. Then he stood, his movements stiff and hesitant. Amelia felt a pang of sadness. Even in the brief glance, she could see the weight he carried, grief, fear, and something deeper, a reluctance to connect. "Hi, Ethan," Amelia said gently, taking a small step forward. "This is Leo. He's staying here for a while, just like me." Ethan didn't respond immediately, his gaze flickering between them. Finally, he gave a small nod but said nothing. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back toward the house, leaving Amelia and Leo standing in awkward silence. "Did I do something wrong?" Leo asked, looking up at her with wide eyes. "No, sweetheart," Amelia reassured him, brushing a hand over his hair. He's been through a lot." But Amelia couldn't shake the encounter. Ethan's loneliness reminded her of Leo's own struggles and, painfully, her own as a child. She resolved to try again, to reach out to the boy who seemed as lost as she had once been. The opportunity came sooner than Amelia expected. One evening, while she was reading to Leo in the library, Ethan entered quietly, his steps barely audible on the polished floor. Amelia paused, glancing up to find him hovering near the door. "Would you like to join us?" she asked, her tone soft but inviting. Ethan hesitated, his hands fidgeting at his sides. Finally, he moved closer, his expression guarded but curious. He settled into a chair across from them, his body stiff as though bracing for something unfamiliar. Amelia resumed reading, her voice calm and steady. The story was simple, a tale of a brave knight and a hidden treasure, but it seemed to capture both boys' attention. By the time she finished, Leo was asleep, his small body curled against her side. Ethan, however, remained wide awake, his gaze fixed on her. "Why do you do that?" he asked suddenly, his voice low but clear. "Do what?" Amelia replied, surprised. "Talk to us like we matter," Ethan said, his words tinged with both confusion and longing. Amelia's heart twisted at the question. "Because you do matter," she said simply. "Sometimes, we just need someone to remind us of that." Ethan didn't respond, but his expression softened, and for the first time, Amelia saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. From the shadows of the hallway, Logan watched the exchange with quiet intensity. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but something about the way Amelia interacted with Ethan drew him in. For years, he had tried everything: specialists, therapists, tutors, to reach his son. Yet here was this woman, a stranger, breaking through walls he hadn't been able to touch. Logan's thoughts were conflicted. He admired Amelia's compassion, but her presence also unsettled him. She was a reminder of how little he truly understood the emotional needs of the people around him. For all his wealth and power, he had been unable to give Ethan what he needed most: a sense of safety and belonging. That night, as he sat alone in his office, Logan made a decision. If Amelia could help Ethan heal, he would support her. But he also resolved to learn from her example, to step out of the detached role he had created for himself and become the father Ethan needed. As the days turned into weeks, a tentative routine began to form. Amelia spent her mornings with Leo, teaching him letters and numbers in the bright corner of the library. In the afternoons, she often found Ethan lingering nearby, his quiet presence a testament to his growing trust. She never pressured him, allowing him to engage at his own pace. Logan, true to his promise, remained supportive but distant. He watched from afar, his sharp mind cataloging every small change in Ethan's demeanor. He saw the way his son's shoulders seemed less tense, the way he lingered a little longer in Amelia's presence. It was subtle, but it was progress. However, not everyone in the mansion was pleased with the changes. Sophia, though loyal to Logan, began to voice her concerns subtly. "Do you really think this is wise?" she asked one evening as she cleared the dining table. "Letting a stranger so close to Ethan?" "She's helping him," Logan replied firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Sophia pursed her lips but said nothing more. Logan knew her concerns weren't unfounded, but he also knew he had to trust his instincts. Amelia was different. He could feel it. One evening, as Amelia sat by the fireplace with a cup of tea, Logan joined her. The room was quiet, the soft crackle of the fire the only sound. "You've done more for Ethan in a few weeks than I've been able to do in years," Logan said suddenly, his voice low but sincere. Amelia looked up, startled. "I don't think that's true," she said softly. "You love him. That's the most important thing." Logan's lips tightened into a faint, almost sad smile. "Love doesn't always feel like enough." "It is," Amelia said firmly, meeting his gaze. "It's a start." For a moment, they sat in silence, the weight of unspoken emotions hanging between them. Logan found himself wondering how a woman who had been through so much could still carry such hope, such determination. And for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope himself, not just for Ethan, but for the fractured family they were slowly becoming. Amelia's presence was reshaping life within the mansion, breaking down walls and planting the seeds of healing. But as the bonds between them deepened, shadows from the past began to stir, threatening the fragile peace they had found. What none of them realized was that their journey together was just beginning, and the storms they had weathered were far from over. As the days blended into weeks, the mansion's atmosphere shifted subtly. Laughter echoed more frequently in the halls, and the once stiff silences around the dinner table were replaced by soft conversations. Ethan's transformation was the most noticeable. Under Amelia's patient care and unwavering presence, he began to emerge from his shell. He still carried the weight of his grief, but his interactions with Leo and Amelia revealed glimmers of the boy he had once been: curious, thoughtful, and kind. Logan observed these changes with a mix of relief and wonder. Yet, his analytical mind refused to rest. Amelia's past lingered as an unresolved puzzle in his thoughts. He trusted her kindness, but her guarded nature hinted at a story far more complex than what she had shared. And then, there was the question of her brother, a thread that felt loose, dangling dangerously close to unraveling everything. One evening, Logan decided to broach the subject. Amelia was in the library, reading quietly while Ethan and Leo played nearby. Logan entered, his steps deliberate but soft. "Amelia," he began, his deep voice cutting through the stillness. She looked up, startled but attentive. "I've been thinking about what you told me. About your brother." Her expression tightened, her fingers clutching the edge of her book. "What about him?" "I want to help you find him," Logan said simply. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Amelia blinked, her lips parting in shock. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you've done more for my son than I could have imagined," Logan replied, his tone steady. "And because I know what it's like to lose someone you love." Amelia's eyes softened, and for a moment, her guard slipped. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "It's been years, and every lead I've followed has gone cold." Logan nodded thoughtfully. "Then we'll start fresh. I'll hire an investigator, someone who can dig deeper than you could on your own." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to repay you." Logan smiled faintly. "You already have." True to his word, Logan contacted a trusted investigator the following day. Within a week, they received their first lead. Gabriel Harper, a teenager matching the description of Amelia's brother, was living in a rundown foster home in a struggling part of the city. The report detailed a history of neglect and hardship, painting a grim picture of Gabriel's life. When Logan shared the information with Amelia, she was overcome with a mix of hope and fear. "We have to bring him here," she said urgently. "I can't leave him there, not after everything." Logan nodded. "We'll go together. But Amelia, be prepared. He may not be the same boy you remember." The drive to the foster home was tense. Amelia sat in the passenger seat, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Logan drove in silence, occasionally glancing at her, his expression unreadable. When they arrived, the sight of the dilapidated house made Amelia's stomach churn. A burly man answered the door, his gruff demeanor matching the bleak surroundings. "What do you want?" he barked, glaring at them suspiciously. "We're here for Gabriel," Logan said firmly, his commanding presence impossible to ignore. The man sneered. "That troublemaker? Take him if you want. He's been nothing but a headache." Amelia's heart sank as she stepped inside. The house was cluttered and cold, the air thick with an unwelcoming tension. Gabriel appeared moments later, his lanky frame leaning against the doorway. His face was hardened, his eyes guarded. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone sharp. Amelia stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Gabriel, it's me. It's Amelia." His expression flickered with recognition, but it quickly darkened. "Amelia? You left me. Why are you here now?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to explain. "I never stopped looking for you. They separated us, and I did everything I could to find you." Gabriel's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. "It's too late," he said bitterly. "You think you can just show up and fix everything?" Logan stepped in then, his voice calm but firm. "She didn't stop looking for you, Gabriel, and she's not giving up now. Come with us. Let her show you the life you deserve." Gabriel hesitated, his eyes darting between Logan and Amelia. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he nodded. "Fine," he muttered. "But don't expect me to forgive you." Bringing Gabriel into the mansion was a challenge for everyone. He was defiant and mistrustful, his years of hardship leaving deep scars. He kept his distance from Amelia, his words often cutting, his demeanor cold. But beneath the anger, Amelia saw glimpses of the boy she had once known. A boy who had loved swinging on the old wooden swing in their childhood yard, who had dreamed of building a better life. Leo, ever curious and cheerful, was the first to breach Gabriel's walls. He followed the older boy around like a shadow, asking endless questions and sharing his toys without hesitation. Slowly, Gabriel's icy exterior began to thaw, his interactions with Leo softening the tension in the household. Ethan, too, played a surprising role. Though quiet by nature, he gravitated toward Gabriel, sensing a kindred spirit in his pain. The two boys often sat together in the garden, their conversations sparse but meaningful. One evening, Amelia found Gabriel in the library, flipping through an old photo album Logan had given her. It was filled with pictures from their childhood, images of their parents, their small home, and the swing that had been Gabriel's favorite. "You kept these?" Gabriel asked, his voice low. Amelia nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I carried them with me everywhere. They were all I had of you." Gabriel stared at the photos for a long time before speaking. I don't remember much, he admitted, but I remember the swing. You used to push me, even when I didn't want to get off. Amelia smiled through her tears. And I'd do it all over again if it meant seeing you happy. For the first time, Gabriel looked at her without anger. Maybe it's not too late, he said quietly. As the weeks passed, the fragile bonds between them strengthened. Gabriel began to trust Amelia, though their relationship remained complicated. He found an unexpected mentor in Logan, who saw potential in the boy and encouraged him to channel his anger into ambition. Ethan, inspired by Gabriel's resilience, began to take greater steps in his own healing journey, even finding the courage to visit the therapy sessions he had long avoided. Amelia, for the first time in years, felt a sense of belonging. The mansion no longer felt like a gilded cage but a sanctuary, a place where broken pieces could be mended, where love and trust could flourish despite the scars of the past. As life within the mansion settled into a new normal, Logan found himself reflecting on the changes. His home, once a place of solitude and sorrow, had become a haven of growth and connection. Yet, in the back of his mind, he knew that shadows still lingered. The past had a way of resurfacing, and the peace they had found would soon be tested in ways they could never have anticipated. The peace that had settled over the mansion was fragile, like a glass teetering on the edge of a table. Amelia, Gabriel, Ethan, and Leo had begun to carve out a semblance of family, but their individual wounds still ran deep. For Logan, watching their progress was both a relief and a reminder of how much work was left to be done. Yet, just as they were beginning to believe in the possibility of healing, the shadows of the past began to stir. One crisp evening, Logan received a call that sent a chill through his spine. It was from his investigator, who had been quietly monitoring the foster system to ensure Gabriel's previous guardians would not retaliate. "Mr. Carter, we've uncovered something troubling," the man said, his voice low. Gabriel's former foster parents weren't just negligent, they were involved in illegal activities, and they've recently discovered he's under your care. They might try to use this against you or the boy. Logan's jaw tightened as he processed the information. His instincts told him that trouble was coming, and he needed to act quickly. He decided not to alarm Amelia or Gabriel just yet, but he couldn't ignore the threat. The next day, while Amelia and Gabriel were helping Ethan and Leo with a craft project in the garden, Logan received an unexpected visitor. A sleek black car pulled into the driveway, and two men in expensive suits stepped out. Logan recognized one of them immediately, Mason Doyle, a sharp-tongued lawyer with a reputation for bending the law. "Mr. Carter," Mason greeted with a sly smile. "A pleasure to see you again. We've come to discuss a matter regarding Gabriel Harper." Logan's eyes narrowed. If this is about his previous foster situation, you'll find that he's no longer under their jurisdiction. Mason's smile didn't falter. But you see, Mr. Carter, they're claiming that Gabriel was removed without due process. They're seeking compensation for emotional distress and damages. They might even demand his return. Logan's voice was like steel. Gabriel was living in an abusive environment. If they want to pursue this, they'll find themselves in a courtroom where their past will be laid bare. Mason's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Be that as it may, my clients are persistent. I suggest you consider settling this matter quietly before it escalates." Logan didn't reply immediately, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't let these people anywhere near Gabriel again. "Leave," he said finally, his tone deadly calm, "and tell your clients they'll regret pushing this." As the men left, Logan felt the weight of the encounter settle heavily on his shoulders. He needed to protect Gabriel, and he couldn't do it alone. That evening, Logan called Amelia and Gabriel into his study. The tension in the room was palpable as he explained the situation. Gabriel's face darkened with anger as he listened, his fists clenching tightly. "They don't care about me," Gabriel said bitterly. "They just want money." Amelia placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression pained. "They're not going to take you away," she said firmly. "We won't let that happen." Logan nodded. "We're going to fight this. I've already contacted my legal team, and will expose their history in court if it comes to that." Gabriel looked at him, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "I don't want to run anymore," he said quietly. I'll do whatever it takes to stop them. The days that followed were tense as Logan's team prepared their case. Amelia threw herself into caring for the household, using the routine to keep her anxiety at bay. Gabriel, despite his usual defiance, stayed close to Logan, absorbing everything he could about the legal process. He was determined to stand up for himself, even if it meant revisiting painful memories. Ethan and Leo, sensing the tension, did their best to lighten the mood. Ethan, once so withdrawn, began telling jokes at dinner, his quiet wit drawing smiles even from Gabriel. Leo followed his lead, his laughter a constant reminder of the innocence they were fighting to protect. A breakthrough came when Logan's investigator uncovered a former foster child who had lived with Gabriel's previous guardians. The young woman, Maria, had suffered similar neglect and was willing to testify. When she arrived at the mansion, her presence was like a beacon of hope. "I didn't think anyone would stand up to them," Maria said, her voice trembling as she recounted her experience. "They made us feel like we were nothing." Gabriel listened intently, his anger giving way to a fierce protectiveness. "You're not nothing," he said quietly, "and neither am I." The day of the hearing arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Mason Doyle's smug demeanor contrasted sharply with Logan's quiet resolve. Gabriel sat beside Logan, his back straight and his expression defiant. Amelia and Maria sat behind them, their presence a silent but powerful show of support. Mason's case was built on fabricated evidence and emotional manipulation, but Logan's team dismantled it piece by piece. Maria's testimony was particularly damning, exposing the foster parents' history of neglect and abuse. By the time Gabriel took the stand, the courtroom was hanging on his every word. "They didn't care about me," Gabriel said, his voice steady despite the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "They just wanted someone to blame for their problems. But I'm not their victim anymore." When the judge ruled in Gabriel's favor, the sense of relief was overwhelming. Mason's smugness evaporated, replaced by thinly veiled frustration. The foster parents were ordered to pay damages and barred from contacting Gabriel again. Back at the mansion, the victory felt bittersweet. Gabriel was safe, but the scars of the ordeal lingered. Yet, as they gathered for dinner that evening, the atmosphere was lighter than it had been in weeks. Logan raised his glass, his voice warm but firm. "To family," he said, his gaze sweeping over Amelia, Gabriel, Ethan, and Leo. "The one we're born into and the one we choose." Gabriel hesitated for a moment, then clinked his glass against Logan's. "To family," he echoed, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Amelia looked around the table, her heart swelling with gratitude. They had faced the shadows of their past, and though the journey wasn't over, they were stronger for it. For the first time in years, she felt that they weren't just surviving, they were beginning to thrive. The days following the courtroom victory brought a sense of relief to the household, but they also uncovered wounds that needed time to heal. Gabriel was quieter than usual, often retreating to the solitude of his room or the garden. Amelia respected his need for space, but couldn't help worrying. She knew the courtroom battle had stirred emotions he wasn't ready to confront. One evening, Amelia found Gabriel sitting on the garden swing, his gaze fixed on the horizon. She approached cautiously, her steps light on the dewy grass. "Mind if I sit?" she asked gently. Gabriel shrugged but didn't look at her. Taking that as permission, she settled beside him. For a moment, they sat in silence, the gentle creak of the swing the only sound. "I thought winning would feel better," Gabriel said finally, his voice low. "But all I feel is empty." Amelia placed a hand on his arm. "That's because it's not just about winning, Gabriel. Healing takes time. You've been carrying so much for so long. It's okay to feel lost right now." He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "They made me believe I didn't matter, that I was just a burden." "You're not a burden," Amelia said firmly, her voice breaking slightly. "You've always mattered, Gabriel. To me, to Logan, to Ethan and Leo. We're here for you, no matter how long it takes." For the first time in days, Gabriel turned to her, his eyes glassy with unshed tears. "I don't know how to stop feeling like this." "You don't have to do it alone," Amelia said, her voice steady. "We'll figure it out together." Meanwhile, Logan found himself reflecting on his role in the household. He had always prided himself on being a provider, ensuring everyone's physical needs were met. But watching Amelia's quiet, unwavering support for Gabriel made him realize that emotional presence was just as crucial. One evening, Logan sought out Gabriel in the library. The boy was engrossed in a book, his brow furrowed in concentration. Logan hesitated at the door, unsure how to start the conversation. "You're reading Hemingway?" Logan asked, stepping inside. Gabriel glanced up, surprised. "Yeah, it's interesting." Logan sat across from him, his posture relaxed but attentive. "I read The Old Man and the Sea when I was your age. It's a story about resilience, about finding strength even when the odds are against you." Gabriel nodded slowly, closing the book. "Kind of feels like my life." "It does," Logan agreed. "And like The Old Man, you don't have to fight the battle alone. You have people who care about you, who want to see you succeed." Gabriel looked down at the book, his fingers tracing the cover. "I'm not used to that." Logan leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Then let's change that. You're part of this family now, Gabriel. And family doesn't give up on each other." For the first time, Gabriel smiled faintly. "Thanks, Logan." The mansion, once a place of quiet solitude, began to hum with life as the bonds between its residents deepened. Amelia, Gabriel, Ethan, and Leo formed a rhythm of support and understanding, with Logan at the helm, quietly ensuring their needs were met. Ethan's transformation was one of the most remarkable. The boy who had once withdrawn from the world was now actively participating in it. He joined Leo in daily adventures around the mansion, often dragging Gabriel along. Amelia noticed how Gabriel softened around Ethan, his protective instincts awakening as he became a steadying presence for the younger boys. One afternoon, Ethan surprised everyone by bringing a sketchpad to the dining room. He had drawn a picture of the mansion, complete with its sprawling gardens and the people who had filled it with life. "This is amazing, Ethan," Amelia said, her voice filled with pride. "You're really talented." Ethan blushed, his usual shyness returning. "I just wanted to show what this place feels like now." Logan studied the drawing, his expression softening. "It's perfect," he said simply, ruffling Ethan's hair. "Just like you." Ethan beamed, his confidence growing with each passing day. Leo, too, blossomed in the supportive environment. He had started calling Gabriel his big brother, a title that Gabriel secretly cherished. Together, they built forts in the garden, raced through the hallways, and read stories late into the night. "Gabriel makes me feel brave," Leo confided to Amelia one evening as she tucked him into bed. Amelia's heart swelled. "He's pretty brave himself, but I think you help each other." One evening, Logan gathered everyone in the living room. His demeanor was calm, but there was an undercurrent of excitement in his voice. "I have some news," he began, his gaze sweeping over the group. "I've decided to formally adopt Gabriel and Leo." The room fell silent as the words sank in. Gabriel's eyes widened, and he looked at Logan in disbelief. You want to adopt me?" Logan nodded, his voice steady. "You're already part of this family, Gabriel. This just makes it official." Gabriel's emotions warred within him. Relief, gratitude, and a deep sense of belonging. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice cracking. "Say yes," Leo chimed in, his small face lighting up. "Say yes, Gabriel." Gabriel laughed, his eyes misty. "Yes," he said, his voice firm. "Yes, I'd like that." Amelia watched the scene unfold, tears streaming down her cheeks. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that Gabriel and Leo had finally found a safe, loving home. Later that night, as the household settled into a quiet contentment, Logan found Amelia in the kitchen, tidying up. He approached her cautiously, his hands tucked into his pockets. "You've done so much for this family," he said, his voice low. "I don't think I've thanked you properly." Amelia looked up, her eyes soft. "You've done just as much, Logan. More, even. This family wouldn't exist without you." He hesitated, then took a step closer. "You've made me realize what I was missing, not just for Ethan, but for myself. You've brought life back into this house." Amelia's cheeks flushed, and she looked away. I've only done what anyone would. No, Logan said firmly. Not anyone. You. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Logan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Stay, he murmured. Not just for the boys. For me. Amelia's breath caught, her heart pounding in her chest. I already have, she whispered. In that moment, the bonds of their unconventional family solidified into something unbreakable. They weren't perfect, but together, they were enough. As they stood in the quiet warmth of the kitchen, Amelia and Logan knew that their story was only beginning, and that the future, despite its challenges, was filled with hope. The weeks after Logan's announcement brought a renewed sense of purpose to the mansion. Gabriel's formal adoption process was well underway, and the weight of uncertainty that had hung over the household for so long began to lift. The once fractured family now moved with a sense of unity, each member contributing to the whole in their own unique way. Gabriel had grown closer to Logan, their shared moments of conversation becoming a source of guidance and mentorship. Logan, recognizing Gabriel's potential, encouraged him to think about his future. One evening, Logan brought Gabriel into his study, the soft light from the desk lamp illuminating a stack of college brochures. Gabriel hesitated at the door, unsure of what to expect. Come in, Logan said warmly, gesturing to the chair across from him. I wanted to talk to you about what's next. Gabriel frowned, his defenses rising. What do you mean? Logan smiled, leaning back in his chair. You've been through more than most people your age, Gabriel. But that doesn't mean your future has to be limited. Have you thought about college? About what you want to do? Gabriel's frown deepened. College? I don't know. I don't think I'm smart enough for that. That's not true, Logan said firmly. You're smart, determined, and capable. You've shown that time and again. I see potential in you, Gabriel, and I want to help you achieve it. Gabriel looked down at his hands, his emotions warring within him. I wouldn't even know where to start. Then let's figure it out together, Logan said, sliding a brochure across the desk. Take your time. Think about what excites you. Whether it's technology, art, or something else entirely, I'll support you every step of the way. Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. Thanks, Logan. I'll think about it. While Gabriel explored his future, Amelia found herself embracing a new role within the family. Logan's encouragement had inspired her to take her nursing studies more seriously, and she began interning at a local clinic. The experience was both challenging and rewarding, reminding her of the resilience she had developed through her own struggles. One afternoon, as she returned from the clinic, Ethan and Leo ran to greet her at the door. Their excitement was contagious, and Amelia couldn't help but laugh as they pulled her into the living room, where Logan was waiting. Guess what? Leo said, his small face glowing with excitement. Ethan drew a picture of all of us. Ethan held up the sketch, his cheeks flushed with pride. The drawing depicted the family sitting together in the garden, their expressions bright and joyful. Amelia felt a lump form in her throat as she studied the image. It's beautiful, Ethan, she said softly, pulling him into a hug. You've captured exactly how I feel when I'm with all of you. Logan, watching the interaction, felt a surge of gratitude. This was what he had dreamed of, moments of connection and love that made the struggles worthwhile. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Logan stood and cleared his throat. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. There's something I want to say, Logan began, his gaze resting on Amelia. When you first came here, Amelia, I thought I was helping you. But the truth is, you've helped me more than I can put into words. You've brought life back into this house, and you've shown me what it means to truly care for someone. Amelia's breath caught as Logan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple but elegant ring. Amelia, Logan said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Will you marry me? The room was silent for a moment, then filled with gasps and murmurs. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she nodded, her voice breaking. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The room erupted in cheers, Ethan and Leo jumping up and down with excitement. Gabriel smiled faintly, his eyes glinting with approval. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with anticipation and joy. The mansion became a hub of activity as friends and family gathered to celebrate the union of two people who had found love in the most unexpected circumstances. The wedding itself was simple but heartfelt, held in the garden under the same oak tree where Ethan and Leo often played. As Amelia and Logan exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Ethan and Leo served as ring bearers, their small faces glowing with pride. Gabriel stood as Logan's best man, his usual stoicism giving way to a rare but genuine smile. "You deserve this," Gabriel told Logan quietly before the ceremony. "You both do." Logan placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "So do you, Gabriel. You're as much a part of this family as anyone else." After the ceremony, the family gathered for photos, their faces lit with happiness. The mansion, once a place of quiet grief, now resonated with laughter and love. In the months that followed, each member of the family began to pursue their dreams. Gabriel, with Logan's guidance, enrolled in a local college, where he discovered a passion for computer programming. His confidence grew with every passing day, and he began to envision a future he never thought possible. Ethan continued to flourish, his sketches evolving into intricate paintings that captured the beauty of the world around him. Leo, inspired by his older brothers, started school with a determination to learn and grow. Amelia, now a licensed nurse, split her time between the clinic and the mansion, where she continued to nurture the family she had helped build. Her marriage to Logan was a partnership in every sense of the word, built on mutual respect and unwavering love. One evening, as the family sat together on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Logan turned to Amelia. "We've come a long way," he said, his voice soft. Amelia nodded, her hand resting on his. "And we still have so much ahead of us." Gabriel leaned against the railing, a contented smile on his face. Ethan and Leo played nearby, their laughter echoing in the warm evening air. In that moment, the family knew they had weathered the storms of their past and emerged stronger for it. They weren't perfect, but they were together. And that, they realized, was all they needed. Their story was far from over, but the foundation they had built, of trust, resilience, and love, would carry them through whatever came next.